or so ago. I thought I saw you running around with your dog.
Good evening. We'll call the City of Hawarden, Iowa to order. City Council on Wednesday, January 8th, 2020. So welcome to the new year. Here at 5:30 p.m., all present are council staff and mayor. If you wish to address the council this evening, at open business from the community on number 1C. Otherwise, there are no public hearings this evening. First standard agenda item, as usual, is the approval of the December 11th regular council meeting and planning session meeting minutes. So is there a motion by John? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jen. Questions with that? Hearing none, I will call for the approval of those minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes 5-0. Next, we'll do the claims for payment. Questions, we'll start to my left with Rob. Any questions on claims for payment for the 25th or January 8th?
No questions.
Okay, Jen, any questions there?
No questions.
John?
None, thank you.
Okay, Travis?
None, thank you.
Okay, Tim?
None? So moved?
There's been a motion by Tim. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jen. All in favor then of the December 25th, 2019 and the January 8th, 2020 claims for payment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Pass 5-0. Next is open business from the community. Doug, would you like to address the council? Okay. Eric's a reporter, so I don't think he is. Unless you'd like to, Eric, I don't want to turn you, I don't want to not give you that option. I didn't mean it, don't report it that way. I don't,
Well, thank you. Good evening. Some of you may know me as the postmaster here at Hawarden, and it's been a great opportunity for me here at the community and the people I work with that are trying to serve your community. Tonight, I'm going to bring up about 5 little topics, kind of quick for each of you to take and consider in the future. It's prompted by carriers trying to do their job. One of them is the impact of, I guess you'd say, dogs at large. In your code law here, chapter 55, in the area of definitions, has a at-large clarification as means off the premises of the owner, not attached to a leash, and then it goes on to talk about a competent person, something else. It's later identified in paragraph 5508. It just basically says, don't let them run away or run around. Why I'm here now tonight, kind of re-mentioning this, we've got currently with the nice weather, more dogs out and about. Many are on leash. One in particular has been a nuisance for us. It's now gotten to a point where it likes to bite the tires of our LLV. That's our little white vehicle in town that runs around, deliver mail. And it's also impacted delivery to an adjacent house, and I perceive in the future, opposite side, the other 2 houses there. Now I'm referring to a house on Avenue C, and one further to the west being impacted by carrier. Couldn't make delivery there at either house because the one was 2 dogs were out and about. And I have talked to the homeowner again. Past summer, we required them to put their mailbox at the curb so we could service them as well as the other neighbors. My carrier the other day had to avoid the dog. Thank goodness it's kind of that little gravel road, so she didn't have to make a big scene of it, but she did have to avoid it. We could not make delivery to the next customer because the dogs kept on coming. So later on in the day she came back from a different way to approach that and was able to finish delivering 2 parcels and the letter mail for that customer. We have had to deal with a couple of situations in town where people were going to put up the invisible fence. Well, my direction from my leaders in Des Moines, dogs out, you see a dog, you don't go. You go up the house, and if it's not a solid door, not a glass door, solid door, you don't go up. We've even had a situation in town where a big dog and a screen are probably not going to work well when the dog gets excited again next year. I just want to bring to your attention that I appreciate the help that we've gotten from your department down there, the police department. We've had a situation last year with fireworks, but they responded quickly and took care of it. And what I'm trying to tell you is in the future, we will cease delivery to the surrounding houses, not just the house that creates the problem. Because most of the time we're able to figure out where the dogs go because you wait long enough, they go somewhere and we just need to figure out where they went back to. So the invisible fences are not anything that's going to help me deliver the mail. We will not deliver the mail. And I did share that with you before, that if a house, we moved it to curb, and we can't deliver the mail there, or it's blocked, we're not getting out. We're not going to get out of the vehicle and walk behind or ahead to deliver the mail because it's blocked by a car, garbage can, or something else. If it's curbside, it's curbside. We deliver, or we go on. Now, it is, and I've got the approval too, houses across the street and adjacent may be impacted by, if we get into a situation where we have to send out more letters, I guess you might say. And we could get to a point where we actually suspend delivery to all those people, not just to one party. I just want to share that with you so you're aware of it. All right? I thank you for your time on that topic. You do have a question about the post office position. We did have, I have to stop and think, I have to go back and look at my records for sure. One carrier got bit 3 times, one carrier got bit twice. If I recall, one carrier got bit once last year. One has retired, so she won't get bit multiple times this year, but not at least on my job. And I don't want to see it happen next year. The post office itself, last year, FY19, December, January, and February, had nationwide, and that's the topic I'm going to come up to, 473 slips, 2,475 falls, and 560 some dog bites where they had to have treatment. And when we define treatment as more than just a simple Band-Aid and sample at the hospital. So it is a big showstopper, job stopper for me, because I'm here, I'm with the carriers, I try to protect them. I know most everybody is doing it. Just be sensitive to me when we end up suspending somebody else's mail. It could be yours. All right? And I just want to make sure it's clear on that. And if the problem goes away, as we have had just beyond my office, a few blocks, I think the dog passed away, we'll resume delivery. We'll still stay curbside, but we'll resume delivery, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to share that with you. Now, another thing that could impact, it has been impacting us, not so much this year, is, I think it's referred to as 13603, snow removal, ice and accumulations. Paragraph, I wrote down A to myself, it must be a sub-sentence, within a reasonable amount of time. To me, that's a little vague. I've been in other communities, so have you, where you've probably heard so many hours, so many days, whatever you want to call it. You might want to take that into consideration this summer, along with another topic I'll bring up in a moment. There are many places where this customer clears the mail or clears the sidewalk, as well as their personal sidewalk versus the common sidewalk, but adjacent people don't. Or maybe it's the other way around. Everybody does, except for one. We'll try to deal with that one situation, but we have multiple, not going to deliver mail for a little bit. I don't know what that means. Till the sun shines or the ice goes away. I don't know what it's going to take. Our carriers, majority of the time when they're out there and there's ice, not much snow, but we do require them to wear their ice cleats. It does slow them down. It's a little more inconvenient driving because they don't take them off. They put them on and you got to step in the gas, hit the brakes, got to get out of the vehicle. So we try to protect ourselves the best we can. We just need a little more help. I don't know what it takes. But be sensitive. We're coming in that time frame. We know it's next week. In fact, it starts Friday. Cold weather's going to come. Snow is going to come. We're going to have more ice. We did get past this past few weeks. Nice. Most customers worked with us, and I thank them, and I thank all of you folks. But please review that little phraseology maybe this summer when you review all your stuff about reasonable amount of time. Also, when you're reviewing some things, I noticed today, I had noticed it earlier, but today I really pay attention. If you come in the south side or near the entrance for the police quarters, as well as your front sidewalk to the south, you folks took the opportunity to grind down that sidewalk. You folks took the opportunity to get rid of that trip hazard. We have several places within the community where the tree has buckled the sidewalk a little bit, or for some reason, I don't know why, probably freeze thaw, the sidewalk itself is buckled, either by sections or just a crack throughout it. Maybe put that on a thought for the summer that we can jointly, and I will do better this next year. And when we do an inspection, when we're out with the carriers, and we find a few things, if you folks identify who I should tell you back to, I would be glad to do that for you folks. I would glad to assist you in any way I can improve our community to make it safer for my carriers, as well as your residents walking up and down the street. Which also brings up the topic, and that's the last one, I'm sorry to take your time. House number visibility. Boy, oh boy. I'm sure glad you all live in the community because you know where stuff goes. But I bring in carriers from other towns, and you've seen them. Who's that one? This time of day? We're cross-training. We're covering for when our people need to take time off to do their personal needs. We'll bring a person in from another town. I was just over across, I think it was on D this morning, in the house I didn't talk to the carrier about. But 909 is real easy to see, but 913 is hanging underneath the tree. Homes don't have it at all. And for us, this past winter, it was not so bad. My carriers were quick on their feet, quick on the street. We had extra help. We weren't out there like it was 2 years ago, till 7:30. And when you don't have a light over the number, because the light's on the front of the porch, but the number's underneath the porch, or the vice versa, we can't see it. My visiting carriers can't deliver the mail. So I don't know if you have any of that in your world of numbering and stuff like that. Some communities I have been in have it. And I did bring up once before, if we move boxes to the street, you may want to look at, as a community, how you might want to do it in the future. If we have new development, it will be centralized boxes. New development will be centralized boxes. Existing community, and we're trying to make a transition to more curbside. But if you've gone through, well, I don't remember the street exactly, there's a triplex up here. We were doing a hardship for a while. The party has now moved out of the unit, and those 3 units did move to the street. You'll see places here in town, more out there where the rural carriers are at, but some of our city are bump up against it. There'll be 1 or 2 mailboxes, maybe 3, to 1 post. Akron is only that way. It's all maybe 4, 5, 6 houses to a stop point. What that does for you folks, it does not block as much street surface. Remember, they're not going to dismount. So as you move forward in time, as the town grows and progresses and change comes, you may want to look at either centralized boxes for safety and all that stuff as far as little kids, parcels. We only had 2 parcels we know of for sure walked away this year. Porch thieves, we call them. And, but if we have common boxes, we will be able to park here, or stop here and make this delivery, but there's vehicles all along here. We'll try again tomorrow. Thank you for your time. Those are the topics, real quick again. It happened to be dogs at large, invisible fence, just be aware of it. Snow and ice removal, visible house, and then the trips or fall hazards of the sidewalks. Now, if there's anything I can do on my side to improve your service to you guys, your community, please let me know. I'll change things I can get changed, and I can get quite a bit changed. I just have to have the rationale and the support from you folks' side. Please also know on a separate, totally different note, you may have noticed it, our little eagle, our big eagle over top of the post office, we're getting the paint assessed. It will be improved. I don't know when, but it's in the throes. The front columns out front, the corresponding light posts are being worked as well. I got an update this day because I told them if they don't come this spring, I'm getting my own pile of wood and I'm going to build my own form and we'll pour our own concrete. And they will improve our dock out back because we're having a little trouble with one of the trucks getting in there. So we're going to be making some visible changes on our side to keep the history. We're going to bring that eagle back in a better state than it is today. It just, unfortunately, as the government knows, it takes time to move, just as you folks have experienced it. And, thank you for your time.
Thank you for the updates.
And if I can help you in any way, just tell me what I need to do, okay?
We'll have those conversations, and I think the biggest thing, at least, is getting this out there to the community and to us. And interesting that maybe people that may have the dogs don't know that they're impacting maybe their whole block with that. And
most of them know, but their neighbors are soon going to know.
Yes, they will.
Because now the letters are going to go to the neighbors as well.
Right. So.
I talked about doing it last year, and I was able to do most of it word of mouth, talking one-on-one with the customer. But that's going to change. We're going to maybe do less of that because maybe that neighborhood influence will help.
And thanks for the updates to the building itself that you're going to have.
Yep.
That'll
We
help
did,
with.
as you saw also, we put in parcel lockers that helps the customers 24 hours a day come and get the parcels because we were experienced in not able to deliver parcels to the working staff that couldn't get to our office during our time. So we did that for you folks to try to help them because I think we're going to see more and more parcel delivery town-wide. And that's one reason for numbering, whether you're going to give Speedy, FedEx, UPS, some of the other people, they so much deliver by geosynchronous linkage, but we don't, not yet anyway.
Good. Doug, thanks for your time.
And I'll give you an update. If you don't see the construction stuff going on this spring, I'll try to give you or somebody here an update of when we might be interfering up there. We are going to also reinforce our handicap railing. I found that I thought, don't like this. So we're going to be doing that as well.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time. Anyone else? Move next to the mayor's report, please, for today. And Monday, January 20th is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Legislation signed in 1983 marked the birthday of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as a federal holiday. In 1994, Congress designated the Martin Luther King Jr. federal holiday as a national day of service. It is observed as a day on, not a day off. The day is intended to empower individuals, strengthen communities, bridge barriers, create solutions to social problems, and move closer to Dr. King's vision of a beloved community. Dr. King believed in a nation of freedom and justice for all and encouraged all citizens to live up to that purpose and potential of America by applying the principles of nonviolence. So I would encourage people to take the time to volunteer in our community, which helps to unite our citizens of all ages and backgrounds while building a stronger community. Next week, I'll be representing our city at the annual Sioux County Emergency Management Commission meeting. All the mayors of Sioux County are part of the makeup of that commission. This meeting serves to bring information from the past year, new activities scheduled for this coming year, and also bringing forth the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Trusting in 2020, we won't need to deal with the Sioux County emergency management in our community, I would hope. We look forward to the grand opening of the Nature Center at Oak Grove Park this Saturday. This will be a fantastic center for all of Sioux County and the surrounding area. We all know that projects like this don't just happen. Our thanks to Rob and his staff, the Foundation Board, and all of those that made monetary commitments to the Nature Center to bring this to a reality. This is a wonderful opportunity, I feel, for families to spend quality time together. Thanks again to all of our volunteers that serve our community on different boards and the ambulance and fire department squads. We all appreciate your efforts for our community. I truly appreciate how transparent our city government is to the citizens we serve. I want to remind everyone again this year that our agendas are posted at the city office and online at the City of Hawarden website. You can also view the minutes of our meetings and watch the videos of the meetings if you wish. Please remember that the Census 2020 will be upcoming. This is very important that everyone participate to make sure that the census numbers are correct for our community. And again, tonight we start the budget process for the fiscal year 2020-2021. Thanks to Mike and staff for putting together the preliminary numbers. Thanks to our city council members that will look those over and give guidance to the staff and how the budget should be compiled. Since we're into numbers, we'll start with the staff report, and we'll start with Jacob, the number guy.
You bet. So, wrapping up the end of the year stuff, we've got some W-2s printed, got 1099s yet to go, and then we've got the preliminary budget set up, and then coming up in the future between now and the next meeting, it's going to be diving in deeper into the budget and making sure that we're ready to go for the state. And that is all I have for now.
Okay, thank you very much. Travis, anything?
Yes, the wastewater project's moving along. Materials showed up for the new blower and UV building. They've started construction on the blower building and the UV building itself, so they're partially up. Both the permanent and the portable generators are on site. Electricians are waiting on a transfer switch, and they can continue working on the electrical side. There was a hang-up at the Canadian border for some reason, but it made it through, so it's en route right now. An electric rate study has been completed by Missouri River Energy Services. Staff has been reviewing the draft, and a full report should be ready for next council meeting. Also, I've been working with Jacob and Tracy on getting information to complete the rate study for a water and gas utilities as well. These haven't been done for more than 10 years, so kind of they're due just to see where we're at. The electric department received our new Altec line truck. The used one is currently at an online auction site owned by Altec. They've allowed us to use that auction site free of charge. So it was posted on Facebook as well as the city website if anyone local wants to check it out.
Like we talked just the other day, that boom truck, I mean, being a utility entity, it gets inspected and serviced.
Yes, on a yearly basis.
So it's a
Yep, mechanically and electrically, dielectric testing and everything. So
right. So it makes somebody a great.
it's
great
pretty good shape. It's 15 years old, but it's
in
good shape. Yeah.
And also thanks for we appreciate it, Missouri River, for helping us with the electric rate study, and I feel all those studies are important, so we have a good grasp of our costs and incomes and value to our community.
Yep, correct.
Okay. Mike, anything from your position?
I don't have anything to report tonight. Well, my report will be the rest of the meeting, so.
No. Look forward to the next 3 hours then. Just kidding, everybody, just kidding. Heard a lot of groans on that one. Larry?
Yes, actually, some of my stuff will be covered later. We'll cover some of the things in the 2020 plan, which will match up very much with what we are working on right now. A lot of meetings, attending not only local meetings, but regional meetings, doing some prospecting, primary one being the CVN, Community Venture Network, up in Minneapolis, where we get some pretty good leads on some prospects. So we've been up there, visited them on December 13th, and been following up on those leads. Again, continuing to work with our existing business, and probably one of the key things, of course, we're working on is the facade program. Right now, we have 12 owners who have said yes, which actually equates to about 15 actual buildings. Of those, we are at now phase 2, when we're starting to collect the checks for the architect and the assessment of the building. And so far, we have 5 of those checks in. We just started asking for those at the first part of the week. I'm hoping to have at least 6 to 8 in by the end of next week. So looks like we're moving ahead on that. Timeline on that will be probably grant submittal sometime late February, first part of March, and then hopefully some kind of award late spring, early summer, if we are awarded it from the state.
That's an exciting program for our community. It really is. Corey, Chief of Police.
Excuse me. A couple things. First, I just want to touch base on what Doug had said, just to let council know we do have something in place for everything that he brought up. It's just a matter of being notified of it and us inspecting it and taking care of it. There's provisions that are already in place, other than the fact that he said that our snow removal on sidewalks does say a reasonable amount of time. Open for interpretation, but there is something there. Secondly, there's 2 new reserves with the police department. Axel Nanthavong Campos is a student at Western Iowa Tech. He's completed a year and a half of his 2-year degree. They're attending school much like the ones we've had in the past. They're just now going through our FTO process. And the other one is Stephanie Arroyo. We're excited to have them on staff and give them the training that they need firsthand. They've been excited, and it's kind of nice to have a fresh face. It, kind of gets you motivated and to do different things and make sure they're getting the information they need. And then lastly, we put out that the police department's going to sponsor a weapons permit class or a gun safety class. This class is going to be free of charge for any Hawarden resident and Ireton resident that lives within the city limits. We're going to limit that to just those 2 groups of people at this time, but we may expand on that and do something else later on in the year. But that's going to be January 28th at 6 p.m. here at the city offices.
People need to call you to sign up then? Or
Yeah, they need to just get a hold of me or one of the gals up front. We have a master list that we're creating, and we just need to know how much room we need for the class.
Thank you for that. That's important. Mr. Pickner?
I don't have anything to report tonight.
It's not different. Thanks. Council members have any questions of staff or any comments at this time about anything else before we move on? Hearing none, we'll move on again to the mayor's report, mayor's appointments. I'd just like to continue again this year as we have with Travis as the mayor pro tem. Tim, I think, has time to represent us on the chamber board, does a nice job with that, and John with the development committee board. I know Jen's active in the chamber already, and I think these appointments to like the chamber are very important, that we have go back and forth with them as a great entity in our community, so it's good to have a face and a spot there. Jen asked about seating changes. I don't know if we want to play musical chairs and move around, but if you want to...
I just asked him, see if anybody ever switched chairs.
You just let me know if you want to change. Usually we kind of just... I know the longer we get, the further this way we move, so I don't know how we do that. We'll give that some consideration. Maybe 2020 we change things up, and we'll see if anybody's watching, obviously, that way. So thank you for that. Agenda item number 4, this is the third and final reading of the ordinance 718. Again, this is designating the south side of Oak Hill Drive as a non-parking zone. Again, this is brought forth due to concerns of fire trucks and ambulances able to get through that when they're parking on both sides of the street. We've had 2 readings previously. Not much feedback from my understanding from those that may be impacted there.
Haven't heard anything from anybody about the,
Okay, so it's been out there. So at this point, I'd entertain a motion for the third reading of ordinance 718.
So moved.
It's been moved by Rob. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by John. Any questions before I call for the roll call vote? Roll call vote, please, for third reading of ordinance 718.
Feldhacker.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Clucky.
aye.
Kurth. Bergsma.
Aye.
On a 5-0 roll call vote, third reading of ordinance 718 passes. Obviously, depending on weather and those types of things, whether the signage and things will get up in a
Right.
quick, timely manner. Or
We'll definitely start with warning, letting people know, we might even make something and give it to all the residents that live there so they're fully aware.
Very good. Thank you for that. That's a courteous way to approach. Next is a review of the Economic Development Action Plan for 2020. I'll pass this to Larry and Mike that have worked on this diligently.
Larry has put together kind of a action plan for the development, and even though it says action plan for 2020, it goes out a span of 5 years. In looking over the plan, I believe it's he's going to be busy. And I think it's entailed everything that we kind of wanted him to work on, and quite frankly, he has been working on. At this point, it's kind of a working document. If you guys have things you want to see different, or because ultimately what we want to do is adopt this plan as a council. So with your input on any kind of changes, or if you're good with it, whichever, in reading it over, if there's something that he's missing, Larry's pretty flexible and kind of is willing to take on anything or do anything. But so I would encourage you to read it over, look for anything you'd want to see added or changed. Larry, if you got anything to add to it.
No, I think it pretty much covers what we've talked about before, and I've also taken some of the stuff that has been done here before and tried to make sure we incorporated that, plus some things that we've already talked about we want to do, what we're doing with downtown, what we want to do with the recruitment. So yeah, any input would be appreciated, unless you like it as is, and then we'll go with it. But we've kind of been doing this also for about 6 months. What we've outlined here is what we've been working on.
So unless I hear anything else, we'll bring this plan back, put it on the agenda for the next meeting as an actual adoption of the plan. It can be a public document. It'll be, something that we use to measure both our successes and our deficiencies in what we're trying to accomplish.
I appreciate the fact that it takes a lot of what we talked about at the community planning session that we had with citizenry and what their wishes were. And also that it's going to be a working document. It can ebb and flow a little bit, and we'll get some type of a feedback situation with it. It just doesn't say you don't sleep at night or something.
That's what caffeine's for.
You've got energy, I know that. So, anything else in regards to that? So give that further review in your time and get that back to Larry or Mike if you have other thoughts. It looks very inclusive of not only our community, but region and outward. A lot of good connections in that. Thanks for your work with that. Agenda item number 6, in regard to the wastewater treatment facilities improvement project, we have a change order, number 2, in the amount of $11,833 for a relay panel and wiring. Travis, anything in that regard? It looks,
The original solenoids are mounted on the motors, and they're 30 feet down in the pumping station. They need to be moved up to a control panel and controlled from a different location. So just something that was kind of overlooked in the planning.
It still keeps us well under the
Yes, there's quite a contingency for that,
contingency
so.
fund.
Yes.
Yep.
Thanks. Is there a motion for the approval, change order number 2 to Hawarden Construction?
So moved.
Moved by Tim, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jen. All in favor of the approval of that change order, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0. Next is approval of pay request number 4 to Hawarden Construction. We're getting into more of the meat of the project, apparently, $551,165.30.
Yeah, a substantial amount of that were the generators.
Generators.
Yep.
Okay.
And I don't think you appreciate how big the generators are till they pull up in the front of your building on a flatbed semi, and they cover just about the whole thing.
I saw that
So,
that morning.
yeah, they're big.
So that'll be a good,
Yeah, the one that'll, is permanently mounted at the wastewater plant will be able to run the whole plant fully loaded, so.
is there a motion for approval of pay request number 4 to Hawarden Construction?
So moved.
Moved by Travis, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tim. All in favor of the approval of the pay request number 4, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It passes 5-0. And just so citizenry knows, we get a whole packet of, we get all the invoices and everything. That's a lot
They give
of,
you lots of paper.
that's a lot of,
And the crooked ones, they came to me that way. I didn't
that's what I'm
have
saying,
them
you didn't
crooked.
scan them straight. That's great, we know that project's moving on, that's going to be a great project when completed. We're going to review the schedule of fees a little bit, and agenda item number 8, we'll refer that to Mike, please.
Last June, we went over some of these fee schedules that we have that are normal, quite often used fee schedules, and what I'd like to do is maybe at the beginning of each year now is take a look at these and see which ones we should change for the upcoming year. So in going over these, periodically we get disconnection for non-pay. We have to send 1 or 2 guys out there depending on what the utility is. Like this winter, we just sent 2 guys out to find the water shut off at the curb. Well, you know, we get a lot more time and effort into that. This is a totally avoidable charge just by paying the bill and or keeping in contact with Tracy. You know, we have a lot of people that are late or that are struggling, and as long as they keep in contact with the front office, we work with them as much as we can. So we would like to see that fee moved up to $50 for disconnect for just non-pay only, and then we added a line for disconnection fee other than non-pay. Right now, we don't have any disconnection fee in, and we looked around at other communities, and they all have a disconnection fee. Some of them are for snowbirds that want to go south. Well, we have to physically send our water guys, our gas guys, our electric guys up there to shut off whatever utilities that they want shut off. And then in that, basically the $30 fee for that is just covering our cost. Same way with the connection reconnect fee that right now we have at $25. That's not even covering the cost of the labor for one guy for an hour. So we would recommend that go up to 30. The other thing that we would like to see change or recommend that be changed is our shelter house rental. Last year when we went through the schedule of fees, I believe Rob told me that we were really cheap on that. In which, when we got to looking around in other communities, we are really cheap on it, and now we're having to find ourselves. We put new windows in. We got to put new siding on it. The siding is starting to rot on the bottom. As much as it was rented 39 times last year, and you figure that it's probably somebody from in town that starts a rental, but they're having a family reunion and bringing people in. So we want to make it look nice, make it look like something we can be proud of. And of course, that costs money. I'm recommending that the shelter house fee go to $75 a day. And we had a 2 consecutive day fee in there of $25. I would recommend that we just go $75 a day and not have a consecutive day. I don't know if you guys have anything out there, but that's, you know, for 2 days for right now at $75 is really cheap to tie it up on a whole weekend. So those are the changes that we would recommend at this time on the schedule of fees. You know, we did the pool last year, things like that. There really isn't anything else in here that we came across. One thing I do want to point out is the building permit fees. I was looking at that today, and we've had more building going on this year, whether it's a small project or whether it's a house project, and we haven't gotten any complaints on the building permit fees. I think they're just such a common thing. We started those in July, so I think, you know, that was good for us to implement and to just to enforce. So, but the other fees, I think that'll, you know, get us through this year. And
So, Mike, if we bring forth a vote tonight, would they then be,
yeah, what we need is a consensus, and then I'll come back in a resolution at the next meeting.
okay? Is there a thought from council to give staff any recommendations?
Looks good.
I agree. It's reasonable.
Yeah.
It's very reasonable still.
We're still on the cheap end with our shelter house, but, you know, we want people to use it.
Right.
So I don't want to price it where people are going to be like, I don't want to use it, but yet we need to recoup some of those costs of the money we put into it and keep it up. So, and we always have somebody clean it after it's rented, so, you know, and that's all included, so.
Is that enough feedback for you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, and thanks for looking at those. As we talked last year, it's imperative that we keep up with, you know, if we don't look at them for 5 or 10 years,
Right.
we're way behind the cart, so that's not fair to us or the citizens, so. We'll move on to agenda item number 9, consideration of the sale of the old city hall.
Larry's been working with a client who's interested in moving their business into the old city hall. They have made us an offer on the building as is, as it sits. I've included some of the, I guess, the letter from the person that's looking to buy it. We just need to make sure that council is on board with selling that business, taking it out of the city hands. Also with, you know, recognizing all the work that the Historical Society has done to it to keep it where it is. I think without a clear plan for the building on our end, or a money source, as Tim tells me, it's going to be another $800,000 to get it back to where it needs to be. But without another money source or an income source to keep putting into the building, does the city want to consider selling that building?
I think you mentioned that earlier, the potential person of purchase understands the historical significance of the outside, and does that pertain anything to the inside, or is it strictly outside, those types of things that they are understanding too?
Strictly the outside, from what I understand, can't change, and Tim can correct me on that. He's probably dealt more with the historical aspect of it, but I think it's the outside that needs to remain intact.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
Be
the
nice to make
inside,
it like it was, but, you know, it's
right.
realistic. It's a new building, or an old building that he wants to use, like new uses, so
Right.
it'll be different.
So, and I believe we all toured it, or whoever could make it toured it this fall, and kind of sees what shape it, you know, the inside is, and how much work it needs. This person plans to put in a lot of their own money into remodeling the building to suit their needs. He has expressed also an interest in keeping the upper floor all open. So that will keep some of the integrity of that in. But if we want to move forward, then we'll come back with a resolution at the next meeting to set a public hearing and publish for publication. We are working with a realtor right now to get an appraisal on the building.
Yeah, that's something I just asked Mike to clarify a little bit. It's pretty hard to value that, and I think we offered it for sale at one time.
and we were going to give somebody $100,000 if they came in and made a valuable use of it, and we got a lot of press out of it, and we didn't really get anything else accomplished, so I think it's going to be hard to value, but I just wanted, a starting value, and I think probably when they try to arrive at a value, they can take into account our marketing efforts. The only other thing I'd wonder about is when we go to do this, how much do you want me to try and write in any kind of requirements for the person to make investments or do any of this, or should we just kind of sell it and rely upon them to do that? Somebody could buy it if we don't put anything in it, and they could decide not to carry through with it too, but do we really want it back if they don't? Those are just some things maybe to think about. So, and then, you give the guidance, we'll try to write it up and bring back what you want.
With most of our land sales, we put in a buyback option that if, nothing gets done with it within usually 18 months.
Do we want that?
Right, yeah, and that's the question, do we want it back, or are we okay with somebody else owning it and it's sitting as is?
And that isn't the only way you could try to enforce it. We could try to put some obligations on them to do things and then, try to force a person to do it or seek damages from them if they don't do it. But, in this situation, I guess I'd lean more towards a cleaner sale. I just wanted to bring it up so you'd think about it.
Obviously, the concern would be this person that's interested. If this person ends up to be the buyer, it sounds like this person is going to proceed and do something. If someone else came in and
You just bought it to hold on to
just
it.
bought it and
Yeah.
unfortunately, then it could go backwards further. But
I'm almost inclined to say that I still would like to see something done with it within a certain time frame, at least.
Maybe some ask that they make a commitment to some kind of a minimum investment within a period of time, maybe a 12-month or a period of time that they'll invest at least a certain amount of funds into it. Is that what?
Yeah.
And I think I'm in the same boat there. I'd hate to see it just sit there and never any improvements done following what's already been done, so.
It seems to be his plan, so it probably wouldn't discourage him from, doing it at least as long as we don't get an outrageous amount.
Right.
Right, and we certainly appreciate the Historical Society and Hawarden Community Foundation funding and things to keep the exterior and everything that's been completed to get it to where it's been, so.
Well, if you gave Tim 50 cents an hour and tried to price it based on what's stuck in it, I think we'd have a hard time finding a buyer.
So I think maybe the consensus is we proceed, but perhaps, as Jim pointed out, to put some type of a timeline commitment to make sure we spur that person into completing the.
Probably would be
starting the
best
project.
to have Larry talk to the potential buyer, and I know Larry's told me he plans to put a significant amount in and maybe put the lower end of that amount that he's thinking on that, along with an 18-month timeline, and I don't foresee that as being an issue.
Good. Yeah.
And the process going forward is we put it on the next meeting, and then there's 3 more readings.
No, what we'll do is we'll set the public hearing and the publication next meeting, and then we have to publish it no less than 4, no more than 20 before we have the next council meeting or when we want to have the public hearing. And then after the public hearing, we make the resolution to dispose of the real estate.
Okay.
And then it's up to Jim and the buyer's timeline when they can get everything signed.
Okay.
Maybe we'll work out a little purchase agreement ahead of time that's contingent upon final approval. Since this one, I'm assuming we'll probably need to provide an abstract on this one.
Any other comments about the consideration of the sale?
Does it come with or without the vehicle?
The Brockway, I think the fire department will want it, but, you know, and the movie theater sign.
This,
Yeah.
that's what it's-
That's
big
out
sign
already.
and-
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I didn't
Got a
see it
bug-
hanging on your
got a
house.
buggy donated too, so now we gotta find a place for that too.
Some of us that go way back, rest assured, this isn't the gentleman from California that is going to come out and start a new political party in there.
Right.
But, you can rest assured that's not him, I think. So. Well, thank you for your work with that, everyone. Appreciate that very much. Agenda item number 10, this is the approval of the bad debt write-off with CenturyLink. This goes back quite a while.
These are funds that were billed out to CenturyLink between 2003 and 2007. Obviously, I don't have all the history. The history I tried to find on it was at that time when the smaller telephone services were in business, they were billing for their cabs, which is carrier access money, and then the larger carriers would pay the smaller phone companies like ours. CenturyLink has protested these since 2003, and as many other smaller telephone companies also build companies like CenturyLink absorbent amounts. Well, a few of those companies have gone to court with CenturyLink because they wouldn't write them off and they wanted their money and have lost. Talking to Consortia Consulting, which does, our phone service, even if CenturyLink, we could prove they owed it, it's 2007 it ended, and then we got on the right track, and it's too late to collect them. But they assure me as well that these are overcharges back in our system from back then. So CenturyLink has been talking to them and saying, can you please get them to write it off so we can take it off our books, meaning theirs, and then we can take it off ours as well. And I think at this point, this is our only remedy for anything, so.
And I don't know a lot about it, but 2007, it would seem like it'd all be barred by a statute of limitations by now. I mean, breach of a written contract's 10 years. That's about the longest one I'm aware of. So, I mean, I don't know that for a fact because I don't really understand. But I think it'd have to be a breach of our contract. I don't know how, they
Yeah.
failed to pay us as we thought was agreed.
Well, they contested the bills all the way through then, and then I don't know what happened after they contested them, if everybody just let it lay. I don't know how that all worked, but in the end, it's 2020, and
Yeah, unless that protest process would somehow extend the statute of limitations. I mean, I think they're all barred, and it sounds like they're nothing we could ever win anyway.
yeah, and like I said, CenturyLink has taken other small municipals to court on these same fees, and the small municipals have lost, so.
So moved.
There's a
I'll
motion
second
by
it.
Travis,
I'll second that.
seconded by Rob. This is to write off the bad debt write-off to CenturyLink from 2007. Questions or clarifications? All in favor then of the bad debt write-off to CenturyLink, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0. That'll help our finance officer to clean that up a little bit then. We're going to move on just to the introduction of the fiscal year 2020-21 general fund and utility budgets. It's amazing how quickly that's come around again, isn't it?
It
Pass
is.
it on to Mike.
I've given everybody paper copies as well as they have electronic copies. Sometimes I like paper copies and I can go through and I can write on them and do what I want. I'm just gonna, this year we've given you both the general fund and the utility budgets. They both came together, I guess, and I feel fairly well. Jacob might feel different, but no, I think everything came together fairly well. Everything we have in here is over the 2% that the state legislator passed last year, saying cities to go over 2%, you can do it, but then you got to have a supermajority. We're at 3.49, which Jacob said compared to a lot of other cities on his listserv, they're well above that. And just for an example, 2% is like $15,000 for us. So it's hard to stay at that 2%. So we're at 3.49. We're about, these numbers you'll find are about, in the general fund, 25,000 over what they were last year. They also constitute, this current year we're in, we're at a levy rate of 14.59, one something something, and this would increase our levy rate to 14.815. So about a 22-cent increase, unless we go through and we find places where council would like to make reductions. We have eliminated one office position in this new budget. One of the large increases you're going to see is in streets and capital equipment. That was raised from 32,000 to about 104, basically because streets have all the big equipment. And we're getting to a period of time where we got to start replacing the payloader and the sweeper, and so you're at 200,000 and 200,000, and the dump trucks are 100,000, and so we were not putting enough money away for those. This is what it would take to comfortably replace their equipment, hopefully into the future. So that's one of your big increases you'll see. Some of the smaller ones are, we started or increased the community center capital equipment from 3,000 to 10,000. Our tables and chairs downstairs in the community center are getting in rough shape. They're 15 years old. So we're going to have to be looking at replacing those. You know, if we got to replace any of the tiles, we're looking at hopefully writing a grant for a new dishwasher in the kitchen. The dishwasher came out of the old Lutheran Social Services building many years ago, and it's been in there for 15 years. So we need to, the building's getting to the point where we got to start fixing things and putting money into it. Ambulance and fire, they never had a building maintenance line item. So if they ever need any maintenance done, it would come from wherever we could pull the money. So we put a small amount into those, like $1,500 into those. So there's some changes that are in there. I know, you know, the levy rate going up 22 cents. You know, if as you guys go through there, you see things that can change, let me know. 22 cents equates to about $12,000 in cuts to get that back down. So, I mean, it's not like it's a huge amount. So, with that, I would invite you to, first, on the first page is kind of our timeline that we would like to see for reviewing the budget tonight is actually just distribution and preliminary review, which is just me going over some of the highlights, but, you know, I want you guys to look in it. We can bring it back to the next meeting, have more discussion, and that's where we would set the public hearing for a new requirement in the state law, which is public hearing for a maximum amount levy. So we have to publish a maximum amount budget, even if we already kind of know what it is, and then we have to have a public hearing on it, and then we cannot go over that amount. We can go under that amount, but we can't go over. And then the next month, we have to then have another public hearing and publish the actual budget. So those are a couple new steps that we're working through with the law. So next one, we would like to set the public hearing for the maximum, and then have that public hearing on the 12th. So those are just some of the highlights. I know you guys haven't had it very long. I'd entertain any questions or comments at this point, or if you want to wait to take a more detailed look, I'm okay with that as well.
budget review schedule is also on the City of Hawarden website.
I'm not sure if it is, but it will be. And that too, we'll have to put those on the websites now
So people are aware of the,
as another requirement to that law, the maximum and the regular budget, so. And then however you guys want to do the budget review this year, last couple of years, it's kind of been taking it home and
Yep.
looking at it, coming back with questions. I mean, I can do a line-by-line midnight meeting as well if you would like, but,
salaries were pretty, salary percentage in the budget for,
they were kind of all over the board this year.
yeah.
Next year, they'll be more standard, but, because of the union increases and the staff increases, we're all a little bit different. What we tried to do is get those two, I'm not going to say on the high side of average, but try to get them to average. And so we're hoping that we have a great baseline now, and then going forward, we can keep people up.
Right.
We're not the only city. I've found a lot of cities have had to do that, as well as a lot of companies, because the employees just aren't out there anymore. And so the job market has gotten a lot more competitive.
Those folks we contract with, such as Mr. Pickner, that been, I haven't looked historically, has it been just stationary?
It is at Mr. Pickner's request.
You have a no report discount.
Well, we thank you for those no reports.
I can tell you that if Mr. Pickner retires and we have to hire a new city attorney, it's going to cost us, we're going to go into probably attorney shock.
Well, that would be my, my concern, and, not that Jim, won't be with us for a number more years,
Right.
but
Knock on wood, huh?
not gonna knock on this gavel here, but
What do you mean with us? You or with us?
not with me personally, no.
It's-
I think we've had a discussion previously, so I don't know if the council wants to give that some consideration over as they look at the budget and enhanced, so that may be something. So then maybe tonight, it's been distributed, we take it home, we look at it and see what changes have been made, and
And yeah, feel free to mark it up. If you ruin a page, let me know. I can get you a new one. Call, email, visit, send a letter, whatever you got with your questions, and if you have any before the meeting, and, we'll try to put out a product that, we can live with and that's realistic. And utility budgets this year, last year, this current year we're in, we transferred in 300,000 from electric. This year, we're proposing to transfer in 250 from electric and 50 from gas. You will notice under the gas utility, we are projecting that at about a $37,000 loss, but we're unsure where the reason we're doing that is we're unsure where this rate study is going. There's 80,000 into the budget for the rate study,
Rate case.
or rate case.
Rate case.
And if that doesn't go through, then it will go to a profit in gas. If it would happen to go through the full rate case, sorry about the study, full rate case, we do have reserves that we can go into. I mean, it's not like we're going to shut off our gas and not buy anymore. And then anything that's found in the rate case is refunded, and it would go back into the reserves.
This is a random question, but forecast next year, if you can. Like, I'm looking at a tax levy right now of an increase of that. But in order to keep it at that, we dropped a position and made other cuts. So next year, are we going a lot higher than where we're at now?
I don't know if we'll go a lot higher. I mean, and it's hard. I mean, right now with this budget, we're forecasting at least 6 months and then into the next 12. And you don't know what's going to happen after that. But, as all budgets go, they rarely ever go down.
Right.
And so, part of, it depends on our tax base, on how that gets built. It depends on our valuations as the county increases property valuations. So, there's a number of things that it hinges upon, and each year is different because we don't know what the valuations we're going to get from the county or the state to come into that. Another thing that could come into play is the rollback. The state gave us a rollback when they started rolling commercial property back. Well, every year we have to have our budget in March, and every year in about February the state starts talking about, let's take that away. So, according to Iowa League of Cities, is we should keep budgeting that until they actually take it away. So, there's a lot of variables that can come into effect. But if all of our valuations and everything stay as they are, we're probably going to see somewhat of an increase. We're always looking for ways to save money, and this year, unfortunately, it's a position. Maybe that 10,000 we moved into the community center has to go back down to 3, or maybe, you just make those moves you need to, or maybe you look at other things that we fund within the city that are non-essential city functions, so.
Because you said you increased what you put in for like streets right now.
Yes.
So that increase won't be in there next year.
No, that's what we need. That's what, projecting out 10 years, that's what we need to start putting away.
Okay.
Or 10 years and beyond. I mean,
Is that including fixing the potholes and stuff? 'Cause that's
No,
the one
that-
thing
no.
I've gotten the most flack about is just
yeah,
our
that's under the other part of the streets. What I think Travis is talking about is just the capital equipment.
Yeah.
We've had to increase that much. But the rest of it, the potholes and any kind of street plans you're doing, new streets or overlays, are not in here. Those are things we would probably have to borrow for and things like that,
Well, there's regular maintenance
Yeah,
included
but I
in
mean,
there.
still, we
There's,
got a lot of maintenance that
Yeah.
right.
Right.
gotta do.
Seal coating is in there. The actual cost for the cold mix, that's all in there.
So we should probably come up with some cuts if we could, huh?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys see some places you want to trim and try and keep that levy at that 14.59, I mean, this year, I figured it out, it would take about 12,000. Next year, it may take 25,000, It just is going to depend on, evaluation, and I think it's good to look ahead and to have a plan. It's easy to sit at these tables and say, well, we're just going to up the levy, or we're just going to, raise things, but you also have to figure out what are we spending our money on and what can we get by with not spending our money on. We're running into things with this building now, with the furnaces, and that's the bad part about that is it's 15 years old. I mean, when it was brand new, we didn't worry about spending any money on it for 10 years. So, but
And Jen can just be cold.
she's got mittens on. So, but yeah, if you see anything in there.
Good, thanks for working with that and your department heads in that regard. Historically, I think we've been very good in our budget process, so. And I'll just remind the council, if you converse with each other, just do it on a 1-to-1. Can't do it on a 1-to-2, so, okay. So we'll come back then with that, and if I find our agenda, we'll keep going. Looks like the last standard agenda item is a consent agenda from Casey's General Store to renew their Class E liquor license, Class B native wine permit, Class C beer permit, which is carry-out beer off-premise sales with Sunday sales. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
By Travis.
Second.
Seconded by John. All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes 5-0. Obviously, in the next number of months, we have a lot of work ahead of us. We have a lot of projects going in budget time. So our next regular stated meeting will be Wednesday at 5:30 on January the 22nd. So please look over the budget and review that heavily and give your feedback to staff. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn our city council meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Tim. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Travis. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, city council is adjourned. Thanks so much for your attention.